This is my Olympic gold medal. I've done it now.
1,000 kilometers in 9 days.
We are joined by the one and only
Mackenzie Bourgoyne.
The trail was absolutely crazy. So much flooding, so many trees down, climbing over trees, dropping into lakes almost and walking out of that, and then you hit another tree and you're back in the water. I'm scouring Google Maps, check if this road the RV is going to get down or like where the crew can stay. But I came in that night feeling pretty rough. Like that was the night where the film crew were a bit worried. They were like, are we allowed to keep him going at this point? On the track, as soon as I finished, my core body temperature would just plummet and I would go from, being warm or like an all good temperature to shivering, and my entire body would stiffen right up. Just to get in and out of the car would be impossible. Meanwhile, I was running 10 minutes earlier. The crew in this entire period of this like 5-6 hour period in the middle of the night, middle of the dwelling up forest, cars all being scraped, Boddington police have like shut down this other area. They reckon it was like a meth lab or something. They sent into another direction. I don't even know how they didn't run out of fuel after all this. They're super panicked. They're super stressed. They're on the phone with the Boddington police trying to get them to like let them through in this area, and they're just being ignored. I'm asleep for maybe an hour. Possums, like the most terrifying noise I've ever heard. Like they start fighting in the roof or something. And I'm just skitzed out at this point, man. I woke up like, where am I? Like stressing in this room. I thought I was still on the trail because it was just like dark. Counting down. I'm like, Jack, what's the time? When can I get a paracetamol, bro? Like I'm dying. I don't care what it is. We need to do something. Because I've never been in that sort of pain before. It was the only time on the whole thing I just sat down on the side of the trail. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just gonna sit down. Like I'm so sick of this. Am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for others? You've got a whole team of people here that believe in you and believe in what you wanted to do. And they were willing to either invest in the documentary, be here to film the documentary, barely get any sleep for a week, crewing, being your medic, being your wife and looking after you. All these guys that have driven hundreds of kilometers out to the middle of nowhere to run with you and to make sure that you can achieve this goal. You have a bigger purpose. It's not just about you, and it's not just about you wanting to do this run. That's what really like flipped the script for me and made me push that final leg in.
Welcome back to Timeless Mindset. In this episode, we are joined by Mackenzie Bourgoyne. He is a runner and owner of Dubbel Fitness, and he recently completed the Bibbulmun track in record time, 1,000 kilometers in 9 days, an incredible achievement. In this episode, expect to learn about Macka's personal mission for the run, how he prepared mentally and physically for the Bib track, a day-by-day recount of the entire run, how the run was more than a run with his entire support crew, why unrelenting self-belief is at the core of his success, how this run was his gold medal event, plus so much more. One of the most incredible endurance achievements ever, and super, super grateful to have Macka as a friend and someone in my life. A Superman, honestly, in my eyes. It was a great insight into his mind and the psychology of a very driven and successful individual, a conversation to learn plenty from. Enjoy. Before we begin, I'd like to make a deal with you. So this podcast is my dream, and I love bringing these powerful conversations to help elevate all areas of life. Now, if you can do me the small favor of clicking rate show 5 stars on Spotify or subscribing on YouTube, I promise I'll keep bringing as many valuable guests as I can onto the show. Hopefully we've got a deal. In the meantime, enjoy. Mackenzie Bourgoyne, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, mate. Pleasure to be here.
So take me back to the origin of the inspiration to do this run and take me into a bit of the context.
Yeah, so the Bibbulmun track's 1,000 kilometre track from Albany to Kalamunda. Passes through a number of towns and pretty diverse sceneries, but one of those places is Collie, which is kind of towards the back of where I grew up, down in Brunswick Junction, about 150 k's south of Perth. So growing up, I was in the Scouts, I was in the Cubs. We would do a bunch of hikes out on this trail and sort of fell in love with being out there and what the trail has to offer. And I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a spiritual place to be at. And growing up and doing so many of those hikes, it was always on my list to do an end-to-end and to walk the entire 1,000 kilometre trail. Got the opportunity to do that in 2021 with my good mate Cam Bostock. We completed the trail in 21 days, and at that point we were reflecting, I guess, on who's done it faster, what are the fastest times on this thing. And as a runner, I decided, in that moment, I'm going to take the record one day and I'm going to, put my name and stamp my name on this track. And yeah, that all came to fruition in the last couple of weeks. It's something I've been preparing for a long time and pretty dedicated preparation for the last 12 months. And we took, we began the track on September 26th and finished 8 days, 22 hours, 44 minutes later for the 1,000 Ks and for the fastest time that's been completed on there.
Yeah, to be honest, just the numbers, it's sort of hard to comprehend the sheer the 1,000 kilometers in 9 days. I mean, I sort of upped my running in the last month, and I looked at my numbers, and it was like 100 kilometers, and that's like just one day.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to comprehend. And a quote I did see somewhere, I saw it was talking about how everything hard is a series of, things that are easy, like a bunch of smaller steps put together. And I think when someone sees sort of this end mountain, it's really easy to like almost put you on a pedestal for this achievement. But I know that's taken years of dedication and commitment to be able to, for your body to handle the stress. And there's a lot of exercise science which goes into your training, and it's not luck, you know what I mean? It's not like a coincidence that you're able to achieve this thing. So take me into, I guess, more of that sort of the background story to actually getting your body and mind in a position to handle this run.
Yeah, well, I think that's an awesome question, man, and a way to lead into this. It is so much more than the physical, and purely physically, obviously, I've been preparing for some time. I started running properly in maybe 2018 and have essentially ran every day since then. I'm a long-distance runner. The marathon is kind of where I sharpen my skills, I guess you'd say, and I've moved since having this ambition, since hiking the bib track originally, into some more of the ultra space. So every year since that time, I've done something that is just outside my comfort zone, running some backyard ultras, which are 6.7K loops every hour on the hour until you're done, essentially. I've done a couple of those. I've done a 12-hour race. I've done a 100-miler. I've done the Cape to Cape record as well, which is another one of WA's most famous trails. I've also, prior to that, done Mount Kilimanjaro and hiked Aconcagua in Argentina. So the preparing of myself physically has been a long journey of each year taking on a pretty difficult challenge. And all of those have led to that mental preparation as well. I feel like you've heard the Hormozy quote, confidence is built by giving yourself a stack of undeniable proof that you are the person you say you are. And that's what doing all of these challenges has led to for me. They're proving that, okay, this might be outside of my comfort zone at the moment, but let's give it a crack. Let's see what we can do. And, 9 times out of 10 so far, I've achieved those goals that I've set. But that comes down to the preparation outside. The lessons learnt during are typically mental. Sometimes they're physical lessons and they adapt to my training. But a lot of the lessons that are from these big adventures are the mental lessons and building that confidence and learning to model off other people's behaviors and the things that they've done and to be able to adapt my training towards that. But then the physical training, obviously running almost every day this year. I think I've ticked over 5,200 kilometers for the year. So that's 100 and something kilometers a week average so far, and we're in October. The strength, I've got a pretty dedicated strength formula that I've built for running, just distance running in general, and I coach a lot of guys in this, making sure that the hips are strong, the calves are strong, the quads, the shins, everything I guess that is going to go into that, taking that next step every time.
What's your deepest purpose for continuing to come back to the grindstone and challenging yourself, one step further? Because no one would blame or argue, or everyone would understand, or even yourself would be able to justify, I've achieved all these things. What makes you so dedicated to continually push yourself for that next challenge?
I've actually reflected on this a little bit recently, and I think because a lot of people, since finishing the bib, for example, they've asked me what's next? There's no next for me as far as journeys like the Bibbulmun go. I'm not some guy who loves these sort of challenges. I think my true purpose and deeper meaning behind all these things has been to build a platform, to build an audience, to build a place where I can share a positive message. I feel like I've got a slightly different message than the sort of people who do these sort of difficult pursuits. A lot of these guys are your Goggins mentality, harden the fuck up. It's not what I'm about. And I think that's really what I'm trying to create is I'm going to do these things and I'm going to do them in my way. I'm going to share my values throughout them. But that's not me. I want to be in a position where I can help people at the end of the day and I can do the things that I love to do. And that's not going to be any particular box. But if I can build a platform and an audience that can help me do that and can support me and I can share my message with them, that's I think what my true purpose is.
So how does your purpose in that domain differ from the style of someone like David Goggins and similar voices?
I think doing it with like grace and humility and like the recognition that you can be fallible. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I take away from Goggins and those other guys is that failure is not an option and you have to keep pushing forward. And through my life, I've failed way more times than I've succeeded. And it's in those failures that I've learned all the lessons that I've learned, you know, as in like not actually getting to summit Aconcagua in Argentina. That was one of the most transformative moments of my life where I came back and was like, you're not living up to not expectations, but you're not living up to your full potential, I guess. And that was kind of like a failure for me that just showed me like, okay, this one was outside of your control, but there's a lot of things that you're not achieving right now that are totally up to you, and you need to make a change and make a step towards them. And I think it's, that failure for me taught me that lesson, and it's what's been able to keep me moving forward since. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between myself and the other people out there that, failure's not an option, push through it. You know, you have to suffer in order to succeed. You don't always. You just need to take a little step forward each and every day. And there doesn't always need to be suffering there. And success isn't the reward for suffering necessarily. It is often, but it doesn't have to be. You can take manageable steps each day and continue honing your craft in order to succeed. It doesn't have to always be doom and gloom.
Have you seen that quote that talks about, you know, everything that is worthwhile is hard, but not everything that is hard is worthwhile?
No, that's awesome. Like, there's so many things out there that you just don't need to go through. And I think it's important to hear that from people that either have gone through it or are watching you go through it, I think.
Even the concept of like an easy run, like, you know, building those zone 2 runs that, you know, building the foundations, because they're, you know, once you've got a certain level of fitness, they're not actually very hard. It's sort of just got to tick the box. But for some reason, because it's not hard and, you know, challenging, you think that it's not progressing you forward. And I think that's applies to whatever pursuit. If sometimes when it's not hard, it doesn't feel like you're making any progress.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example, because you're running essentially on an easy jog, like what you feel is embarrassingly slow or too slow to even get a result. And that's where the most benefit comes from, which is so different to those sessions where you're working on speed and you have to suffer. You do have to suffer in those. That's the hard work that you need to do, but they both have equal benefit and they equally belong in your program and in your life. And that's where I think, taking sometimes like that softer approach is really important, and it's something that people don't get enough of. I think people like you and I, we have this desire to work hard and we'll gladly move through that suffering, but not everybody's built in the same way. And that doesn't mean you can't succeed. It means that you just need to do it a little bit differently.
How's your relationship to yourself changed through these different, I guess, summits? Because I feel like, you know, when you're going through these difficult challenges, you start to really get an understanding of your limitations. How have you seen, I guess, the relationship with yourself evolve from when you started your first very difficult challenge to, I guess, the recent one?
I think like truly internally, I've always had this unrelenting self-belief and this unrelenting positivity. So I don't feel like I've necessarily grown in confidence, because I've just always felt like I could do this and this is the thing that I am here for. I think I'm maybe getting better at communicating like why and getting more buy-in from people. And I think it's a weird point now, because I've been the underdog for so long. And now that I've succeeded these things, it's more the outside perception of me. I've been so used to, I don't know, people cutting me a break here and there because, you know, I'm the underdog, I'm working hard, I'm trying to get up. And now I've worked hard and I have got up, and now people want to tear me down, which is, it's something I've never had to deal with. It's a new challenge now where, I get messages saying, oh, you're just a fucking running influencer or something like that. And I'm like, bro, I'm not. And I've felt this need in the past to always people please. So I think that's a step that I have grown out of, I guess. Like, I don't give a shit what you think about me. I am trying to spread a positive message, and if you're not listening, it's up to you.
So what sort of messages have you got? Because that's sort of, it's crazy when you're the one receiving it, how different it is from like me objectively looking at you and being able to see, I guess, your worth, your value, and see like how much value you can provide versus when you're the one receiving it, you can sort of really internalize that.
Yeah, well, I think it's something like I've always said is like I do believe most people are inherently good, and like in them trying to break me down, it's not necessarily like a takeaway on me. It's always more of a reflection on them, which you've heard the cliche, but they don't want this guy who doesn't fit their perception doing these things because they think it's going to negatively impact maybe people like them or other people that they feel are vulnerable. And they just don't really have an understanding of me, or they haven't heard the rest of my messaging, I guess. So it's like I'm trying to look on it with kindness, I guess, that they're not necessarily just haters, I guess, but they're trying to do their own version of good. But it's a weird thing to be on the receiving end of when for so long. I guess the person I am today is a result of doing all the things and receiving all the support that I have so far to then get to the point, and then not necessarily those same people, but maybe a like-for-like version of the person who would have supported me not that long ago is now against me. It feels like it's just a weird point to be at now.
When you characterize yourself as the underdog for a large part of your story, what do you mean by that?
Well, like I said, I've just failed a lot in life. Like I'm from like a small country town. The people that I associate with today, and just through luck and through growth and through surrounding myself with the right people, like they would, it'd be easy to say, they've had different opportunities than I've had, and I'm comfortable saying that. And I've had different opportunities, and I've always like outworked the opportunities that I've been given to get better ones, essentially. Like growing up, I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I was not the best guy on the team. I got kicked out of more teams than I made, put it that way. But eventually, I got a soccer scholarship and I went to the US and I got to play over there. And all the guys who I had played with were like, awesome. Like, it's really cool to see that you're doing that, Macka, because we didn't make it that far, or we made steps in our life that took us away from that. But we knew this was your dream and you're making it happen. And then it's been the same thing as I, transitioned into running. I transitioned into business. All these people, maybe they start like, oh, good luck with your little personal training business, or, how's the running going, but like not taking it seriously. And it's the ability to stick with it over time has now turned me into a person that's, no one would view as the underdog. Like I'm all up on this pedestal now, but internally I'm still the guy. I'm still that same guy who didn't have the same opportunities, or, I didn't have seed capital or something to start my business, or I didn't have a knowledge of running or a proper coach. Like I just read books, I listened to podcasts, I listened to YouTube videos. It's how I learned business, how I learned how to run. Eventually I got a coach, eventually I got a mentor, but these are things that anybody can do, and I just did them, and now I'm here.
So how do you relate? I find the relationship between hard work and running very interesting, because it's one of those things that for most of the time injury alone is within your control. Like it's very like, take action, do the runs, this is what it takes. And I feel like from my perspective, there's a lot of outcomes that people are striving for in life that are the path to that destination that they've created in their mind is very uncertain, and that stops a lot of people from taking action. How have you found, I guess, within relating this to running, having it sort of, I wouldn't say simple, but knowing that taking action, putting volume in it, it's a more laid out path, and having that hard work as the foundation of your thing, how has that made it, I wouldn't say easier, but simpler? If that question makes sense to you.
Yeah, I guess just most things in life, I feel you can just, if you can like volume cheat your way to success. Like if it's running, just run lots, you'll get better. If it's business, like keep knuckling down, keep learning, you can achieve more. I don't know, if you're a musician, practice more. Whatever it is, volume's usually going to trump everything. So I think that's, a really good parallel to bring into running, where if you just get more easy jogging in, you avoid injury. Obviously, that's a key point for running. Avoid the negatives, but get as much practice done as you can. You will eventually get better. There's no doubt about it. It's the same thing, that I would say with business. And both of them also have the caveat that you won't see the improvement. So you need to trust in the process. Like you will run every day for a month and you might feel a little bit fitter, but you go for a race and you display that fitness after a little rest, that's where you'll really notice like the improvement that you've made. And in business, you could be, grinding. You're doing those little steps every single day, but you are doing them. And you might not have made a sale for a month, but the next sales post you launch, you might get 10 in one go. And it's always those little micro steps, and it's always that delayed gratification, I guess, in business, in running, in most pursuits of yours. As long as you can keep the passion there and stay consistent, again, it's pretty cliche, but that's why everybody says it, because it's true.
All right, let's segue into the run. I want to ask some specifics and take me through a bit of the journey of the run, because I can't even comprehend 1,000 Ks. I don't even know how long. I've probably done that in the last 6 years total, and you've done it in 9 days. So, firstly, what an incredible achievement. But it's interesting because, like, being objective, I always find, like, it's what perception. But when I saw you doing this run, I just almost had, like, absolute certainty. I was like, yeah, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And you've obviously have so much evidence behind you. But I know that when you look on the outside, you sort of just see, I guess, you showed some of the difficulties, but you sort of see the highlight reel a little bit, especially when you only see one reel a day and you're like, oh, he's ticked off that day.
Yeah.
But I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of, what the days look like, into your mind, into the practical things, and into, I guess, some of the specifics that, you don't get really to see, which is like hydration and fueling and all these complex things that go into it. So why don't we start at, I guess, even the preparation to organize all the people to help you out and do the run and all the things that went behind the scenes, including the documentary as well.
Yeah, I guess we'll touch on essentially 12 months ago where I first had the idea. It's something that I've been, working on locking in for some time. It was always just kind of pushed off the calendar another 6 months. And then it came this time last year where I decided I had a race. I was like, I'm either going to get this goal time and that'll, get me into this other race, or if I don't get the goal time, we're going to do the bib track next year. We're finally going to make it happen. We locked it in for April. And that's when I approached one of my clients, Honey. She's a film producer. I was like, look, I want to make just essentially a cool YouTube video. I was like, let's film this. Let's see, if we can showcase the Billman or change some lives with some inspiring content. And she essentially said, like, look, this is absolutely insane. This is absolutely epic. If you're shooting for the stars, why don't we work on something, a full theatrical release, try and get it on Netflix or, wherever we can get this out there. And it's going to be a story that I think people are going to want to view. And I can't stress enough how much more than a run this became, and I'm so excited to get this documentary out. Obviously, it became a massive thing in the last 12 months to prepare for. We've got a lot of businesses involved. We've got a lot of sort of private investment involved. This is going to be so much more than anybody, I think, expects, and especially expects of an ultra running documentary. Like, they're typically pretty boring. I watch them. Nobody else really watches them.
I don't watch them.
No, exactly. And I understand that. It's like a niche content. But this is going to be, showcasing the trials and tribulations. It's going to be showcasing the run. It's going to be showcasing the crew. And they essentially worked, 9 days, 24/9. They were awake at every minute that I was awake, and I was not sleeping a lot. And that's saying something. They're getting me ready, and there's no way that this could have happened without them. And I know that that's like a cliche statement, but I can't wait for everybody to see what they went through, because it was just as difficult as what I went through. But that was over the past 12 months, preparing with them, getting all of that organized, filming in the background, doing all these other things. As far as myself, training began, I guess. We originally planned for April. We pushed it back because of some of that stuff with the documentary. We weren't going to be able to put together what we wanted to put together in April, so we moved it back to September. And I'm glad I did, because I did a 100-mile race on the bib and blew up. Like, my body was not ready, so it was a blessing in disguise. Since then, I changed a lot of my training. I was running about 160 kilometers a week for 10 to 12 weeks in the lead up, doing some really heavy strength, something that, might be of interest to people, just improving my power to weight ratio. So really heavy lifting, which seems counterintuitive for an endurance athlete. But if you're putting so much stress and load through your muscles and tendons, then the resiliency of those muscles and tendons is going to go up. So a lot of isometric holds for the tendons just to really send blood flow there. A lot of heavy strength on the legs, so that if I'm capable of output of X percentage, every percentage below that is just going to be so much easier. And when I'm running really slow for a majority of this, those little baby percentages, they add up eventually to stress the whole muscle. But if we've got so much bigger range to move through of power output, then all of those lower intensity outputs are, going to take a while to add up and really cook the muscle. And that was like the gamble, and the kind of easy way of explaining it, I guess, that I would gamble on reaching the end of the day at that max output, go to bed, have a sleep, have some food, and wake up the next morning and feel fresh. And it was absolutely crazy at how well that worked. Like, my upper body has definitely shrunk, and my legs have definitely grown substantially this year.
Tree chunks.
Tree chunks now. And yeah, across the 9 days, every night I would rock up absolutely exhausted. My core body temperature would just plummet. My body would be fried. It'd be in shutdown mode. I'd have some food. I'd go to bed. I'd wake up and I'd be jumping out the door, ready to go. Like, the resiliency that strength built in my legs to be able to overcome. Like, I was 980 Ks in and I'm still running 5:30, 6-minute pace, on that last day. And it's something that I can't really believe how well it worked, when it was obviously 6 to 12 months of like dedicated strengthening that we put in and working really hard, working as hard in the gym as I was running, which is probably not regular for most.
What would a week look like then? Take me into, I guess, for the people that would be interested, including myself, what would a structure of a week look like?
So the typical training week, Monday morning, I would do about an hour. I would try and hit on the trails, just getting used to the legs moving up and down. This would be a lot of easy mileage across the week. So if we say easy jog, I'm talking keeping my heart rate about 140. So an hour on the trails in the morning. In the evening would be about 30 to 40 minutes. Tuesday
So you'd run twice on Monday?
I would run twice almost every day, yeah. Tuesday in the morning would be another 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how I was feeling. In the afternoon, I would then be hitting my interval session. So the goal of this interval session was to, like the strength, increase my total power output. If I'm capable of running 3-minute pace, then running 7-minute pace is just going to be so much easier on the body. So like a traditional marathon program, we would want that speed to be right up there. The capability of the body to output that speed is important, but the fact in the race that it's not is, just meaning that's going to be so much easier on that. So those would be pretty high volume sessions. In the morning I might have run 6K. In the afternoon I might run another 24 with 10K of work in the middle and like a cool down and a warm up in there as well. Wednesday would be my essentially recovery day. I'd run 7Ks in the morning and then I would go from there straight into the gym, and that would be a solid hour session. And the biggest differences between my regular strength training and the training for this is really working the quads so much harder. There's going to be so much more vert on the track. So building the ability to step up. So a lot of step ups, a lot of lunge pattern movements where the knees are going to be being built and like that overall quad strength is going to be built. And when I'm running a downhill and thrashing the quads, those quads are going to be capable of withstanding that. So a lot of eccentric movements, or the lowering phase if you're dropping into a forward lunge.
It's actually surprising that the downhill running actually puts a lot more pressure on the body than people realize.
So much more, because I guess you've got your body weight being accelerated by that gradient versus on the way up, it's up to you to drive yourself up. If your legs get tired, you just go slower. If your legs get tired going downhill, you just keep falling faster and faster. So it's so much control that's built in that.
Pretty solid rest day, 7K run, hour gym session on the way. Pretty solid.
Still a fair bit of work.
That's my biggest day.
So it became, I guess, probably minimum 2 hours a day. That would then be my big gap. So probably finishing that at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and next run would be maybe 3 p.m. on a Thursday. That would be about 30 Ks. I'd do a warm up and a cool down and then a lot of tempo work. So if you call intervals a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 effort, this might be a 8 or a 7, like a little bit easier, but still speed work. Friday would be my long trail run. I'd drive out to the hills. I'd drive out onto the bib to do my practice work, typically like 4 to 5 hours. And I'd be practicing fueling. I'd be practicing my gear. I'd be getting a lay of the land and understanding the track, trying to get used to that vert as well. Saturday would be a double easy jog day, so hour in the morning, hour in the evening.
What's the benefit of doing hour in the morning and in the evening versus just doing 2 hours?
So if you think of like you're creating a deficit across that run, you're burning calories. There's only so many calories you can take in on the run. I was fueling on almost all runs, but you might take in 100 grams of carbs. So you've taken on 400 calories. In that hour, you've probably burnt, 1,000 calories or something. So if you're finishing a 2-hour run with like 1,000 calorie deficit, your recovery fueling is first going to bridge that gap. So you've got 2,000 calories coming in, 1,000 goes to bridge the deficit that you just created, then 1,000 goes to recovery versus recovery and growth, I guess, and adaptive stimulus. Versus if you do 2 1-hour runs in the morning, you might finish that deficit, a few hundred calories in the hole. You can feel that really quickly. It's not a massive tax on the body. Your body hasn't spent all this energy burning away extra calories and extra fat mass to unlock that energy. It can basically put whatever calories you have afterwards straight into recovery and straight into adaptation, and then you can do that again in the evening. Versus, that big stress on the body of a huge deficit, 2 small deficits is so much easier and so much easier to refuel from.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of those were in there. And then the Sunday was another big long run. That would be flat. It would be on the roads. And the purpose of that was essentially hit the high end of your zone 2. So for me, that was, I'd set my watch to buzz at 148 heart rate. So the easy jogs were about 140. This would be 148. And I would try and dial that in. So like I'm sitting like a 145 to 148 gap for 3 hours straight and just locked in on pace. And that's just training that total, not VO2, sorry, zone 2 work the whole time. So
Yeah, okay, that's fascinating. And no rest day at all. I'm talking like zero, nothing on the legs.
I guess, if you think of like the time between. So the Wednesday, I'd finish the run in the gym by 10, and then I wouldn't train at all until Thursday at the afternoon.
So it's like 30-ish.
Yeah, 30-ish hours.
Which
and
is,
there'd be some opportunities like that. Same with like Friday. Friday, I would have a goal of hitting a strength session in the evening, and it was maybe 50-50. Like I got a few done, but not all. But that run would be done at 11, and then my next run would just probably be at 10 a.m. the next day because I'm not really waking up early on Saturday to get that easy jog done. It's just get it done when I wake up. So there's a pretty big gap on a lot of those, and all the doubles spacing out as much as possible too.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Segue back into where were we at with the? So that was a bit of the preparation,
the prep, I guess.
and the training, which I think is super interesting just to see like how much volume goes into it, how much time, energy, and how long were you training in that sort of structure for? How many months?
So that was probably 12 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, when I'd first been training, and when we thought it was in April, I was doing a lot, but nowhere near that. Like that was kind of a refining period, I guess, where I realized, all right, this was not enough. How can we fit things in more? So the biggest change to my training was actually essentially doing all of that solo. Obviously the training itself changed, but I'm like, this is now 20 hours a week. I can't fit travel in to go run with a mate, or, I go to a speed session, and, we're all chatting and messing around a bit, and that turns the 2-hour session into a 3-hour session. It was essentially all, as much as possible, just running from home, getting it done, ticking the box, and then going from there.
Yeah. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, that's how the prep went. So yeah.
Before we segue into, I guess, the actual run, it would be interesting to talk a little bit about the psychology of training here, because I think one of the biggest things people struggle with, including myself, is actually sticking to a plan and trusting in that process, which in this case is super important that you're trusting it. How was your mindset during this time, knowing you have this huge run? You've got all these like tasks you've got to tick off, but how do you find the whole training process?
Well, I guess I had the earlier start to the year where I had an unsuccessful attempt at like a really big run, and that sort of unlocked within me the knowledge of what I was missing. Like I completely gassed the quads on the vert. That's why I changed all that training in my strength to build more resilient quads. Outside of that run had no issues. So I knew what I have been doing and what I've learned over the years has been positive. And then it came to that, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm missing this one key part, but everything else seems to be good. So that gave me a lot of confidence there. And then just adding in a few test runs along the trip. Like I did a 50K. I did some runs with my mates in the hills where we got a lot of vert. I did a 12-hour race. All these things were just, again, stacking up that proof to make sure that I was feeling confident in what I was doing. And then I also had the added benefit. Another ultra runner named Aaron Young approached me at the start of the year to say, look, he wanted to do the bib track record as well this year. He did break the record as well. He came in a couple of days before me, and his time is a few hours slower. So unfortunately, he's got the actual record right now because I'm having some troubles getting it ratified, which we can go into at the end. But having him along that journey of like, I know that this guy's doing it as well. I know that he's a very well-established ultra runner. I'm just going to look at his training every day. If I'm running further than him and I'm running faster than him, then I know that I'm at least on par with him. Unless he's got some secret weapon up his sleeve, I know that I'm just as fit as him. That's the only thing that I can control. So I'm going to control that, and that's what built my confidence from there.
Yeah, and I also think competition is an underrated aspect. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I think a lot of people, they go into the running journey, or let's just say they go into running, and like it is a very individual thing, right? You're building yourself. But I know that when I train with people, like let's say for footy, for example, like I unlock new levels when I know I'm competing against people. It's just we like the comfort of not losing. Like we don't like our ego takes a big hit when we're being beaten. But I think that resilience and the ability to push us to new levels is almost needed if you want to reach your potential.
Yeah, I think you need to use it as like that added element. And like I used to do it in the past where like in business as well as running, I would select someone who's at a similar position as I am. I'm like, all right, well, I don't know this guy from a grain of salt, but they're now my like dual, what's the word? Like arch enemy, arch nemesis. And I'm going to beat them, whatever time they run, I'm going to beat their run time. Whatever they're doing in business, like, are they putting content out? I'm going to make better content. I'm going to get more clients, whatever it was. Like I would choose people to sort of size myself up against because that competition is important. And obviously we want to be self-motivated, but it's important to have, I think, different areas of motivation. And that can be something that you can check up on every day and just like use that as motivation.
Yeah, if you had a car analogy, the competition with others is just like the nitro, a bit of turbo, just to give you that extra kick. I mean, you've got to be able to generate the motivation. Well, someone told me, and I find this fascinating, motivation is external, but inspiration is internal. So like being inspired to do this running and build your business and do all these things, that's a mission connected to your core values. Whereas motivation can be like extracting these short energy sources. It's like almost like carb loading and just using these quick energy things to fuel, because like we have emotions and we run through it. And I think it's important to be able to delineate, at our core, we have our values, we know what we're striving towards, but not almost judge ourselves for using that competition. Because I know at times, I've gotten in my head a lot about like, oh, I shouldn't really like get all petty about this, but like understand that it's, we have a primal monkey brain inside of us, and it's all right to tap into it at times because we need results, and so you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I think as long as you are using it to move you forward positively, like you're not letting it weigh you down, but you're using it to something, like as inspiration, as motivation to push you forward, then you should be taking absolutely every possible benefit that you can find from any different interaction. And if it makes you better, then like it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to use like necessarily a negative thing, or it might be portrayed as a negative thing like competition. It's not a bad thing to use that if it's in a positive way.
Yeah. Before we get into the run, what was I going to ask? I was going to ask about, do you have any doubts throughout the training? Like, you had these little micro tests and stuff like that with a few little competitions, but how did you, was it pretty smooth training period? You felt pretty confident the whole time?
Yeah, I felt pretty confident the whole time. The biggest challenge in something like this is always the logistics, and that was where a lot of the stress came down from. Like, obviously, adding the documentary to the mix and then just adding, like, crew support and logistics for 1,000 kilometers, like, just as much of my time went into planning that as it did to training. So I knew that, I was controlling what I could in my training, but as far as the logistics went, it's a lot of work to make a plan together that I was confident that was also controlling the controllables, because there's a lot of outcomes that there's nothing I can do about this road not having access, but I'm scouring Google Maps and going through all these Google images to check if this road, the RV is going to get down, or like where the crew can stay, and all of these location things that if it was just me doing the run wouldn't have been important. So it was pretty hard. And like, that's where I guess some of the confidence was lacking, because I'm like, are they going to even understand this? Are they going to be able to adapt to these things on the fly if there are challenges? And thank God they could, because there was challenges right from the get-go.
It's interesting because like you had to sort of lean into trusting others. Like when you need a team to support an outcome, a result, you you have to lean into being able to trust them. You know, when it's within our control, it's really like, you know, if you have that strong mindset, you can trust yourself. But for businesses and teams to thrive, you need to really be able to delegate and trust. And that can be hard because you're relying on someone else to do something, and because you can't do everything, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm lucky enough, like my wife Shannon, she's crewed me on a number of things before, so she knows exactly what's going on. But this was always going to be more than one person could handle. So making sure that how many questions can I answer ahead of time and find a solution for, so that they're not going to be questions on the attempt, I guess.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Did you start to visualize like all those logistics and, you know, think what could go wrong, and then like proactively try and problem solve for those?
Yeah, and typically as a person, I'm not someone who does a plan B ever for anything. It's either like we do this, we burn the boats, we get it done, and if we fail, okay, we fail, that sucks, whatever. But I don't do the plan Bs, I don't do the contingencies. It's either we either get it or we don't get it. That's just kind of like the way I operate, because I don't like to I'm a fan of like the law of attraction. If I'm manifesting a positive outcome, we're always going to get that. And most of the time it does. And if I worry about all these other things, that's kind of attracting energy toward those other things happening. So I just don't plan for other things. I never have. But on this scenario, like I had to, because it wasn't just me that we were dealing with, and I was going to be happy with the outcome. But there's a lot of other people giving up their time for this. And we're filming a documentary, and there's people invested in this that are not just me. So I had to plan every possible outcome, which was stressful in its own way, because it's not something that I do. But yeah, I think that took a little bit of an impact on me to do it. But once it was done, it was a big relief at the same time.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the run. So where does it exactly start, and take me through, you know, day one?
Yeah, we'll do a little day by day and just ask questions where you like, I guess. So day one, we started in Albany at the southern terminus down there. Started at 6:32 a.m., I believe. We were meant to start earlier, but we had some challenges getting down the day before. I had a crew person, Joel, who was meant to be running with me that whole day. He's an ultra runner as well. He'd be able to clock the 100Ks, no stress, but had a bit of an injury. So I was ready to set off essentially for 105 kilometers, I think, solo. My wife Shan jumped in for the first like 15K, which was lovely. And we got moving from there. It's kind of a coastal terrain. There's some beach sections you drop down into, but it's very exposed to the elements. It's just duney, I guess, single track. The snake count for the day was like 14 snakes. Like there were some big boys out there. And I knew that I was actually really hoping I had a crew, like a support runner that day, because like 2 sets of eyeballs are going to be way better. But yeah, managed to steer clear of most of them. Had a couple close calls with the snakes. One actually did like get up at me a little bit, but yeah, made it through that day pretty much unscathed as far as the run goes, but my guts were absolutely cooked. We got in super late the night before, so instead of having a whole day to carb load and an afternoon to just keep eating, I had to essentially cram all my food in at 8 p.m. at night. And then we woke up at 5 a.m., cram food in again, and then as soon as I start running, try to start fueling, and just, yeah, didn't go down well. Like started having some like really bad cramps, having to like stop and use the bathroom every 1 hour or something. Like it was a really rough day to kick things off, and that's where a lot of that like stress came in. I think for me, I knew that I could recover from gut issues. I have in the past. It sucks. It's super uncomfortable, but if you give it enough time, like, and just drink enough water, eventually things will calm down again. But I think for the crew, that was pretty stressful. Just like, all right, it's day one. We already had to start half an hour later because we got in so late last night. Now Macka's coming in late, you know, to every check-in already. Still got a long way to go. So it was a bit of a rough day, which I eventually could recover from as we closed out towards getting into Denmark. There's a water crossing there, which you can't really cross. It's pretty dangerous. So we jumped in the RV and we drive around to the other side of the track, and then you start again. And that was kind of as the sun was going down. Instantly took a wrong turn, went a couple Ks in the wrong direction, and then we climb over Monkey Rock, which is a pretty technical section. It was, pitch black by then, starting to rain, pretty technical. Got lost those couple times. Being by myself all day was pretty frustrating. I was just getting a little bit pissed off because the day didn't go quite to plan. We finished about 8:40 p.m. But yeah, it ended up being about 100 Ks, and it was just not the start that I wanted. I really wanted us to be able to enjoy this whole experience. And yeah, logistical challenges and gut issues for me meant I went way slower. That meant the crew didn't get, the chill time during the day or the chill time at night to get things all set up and ready to go. So it wasn't really the greatest start, I guess.
Do you find much like flow state in these runs? I had a run the other week, and I think it's probably the first time it ever happened, but I was on a longer run. I was probably 12 Ks in, and my legs, like, I stopped consciously trying to run. Like, my legs were I'll just look down at my legs, and I'm like, well, I'm not even thinking about this anymore. And I've, like, never really had that for, like, a very long time. How does your sort of mind and flow state go in these sort of, 100K days?
Yeah, in these long ones, I think that is what it's all about. Like, sometimes I'll listen to music. I don't think I listen to any podcasts out there, but a lot of the time it's just silence and ticking the legs over, one by one. Obviously, in this case, like keeping an eye out for snakes, I was probably a bit more vigilant. You can't really just chill out when you're on the trails, but it's like a different flow state where, I don't know, you're jumping left to right, you're jumping over rocks, you're doing all these like different things, but you're not really thinking of anything else. And that's where you can just zone in on what you're doing and the time just passes pretty quickly.
Do you feel pretty dialed in with your thoughts? Because I feel like one of the hardest things to do would be to, the wrestling with the thoughts. I feel like even when I go on like semi-long runs, in comparison to your run, it's like a walk around the block. But, your mind can easily wander. You start to think about it. How long you've got to go left. You're probably, 20 Ks in and you're like, well, got, a fair bit to go. How do you, is this just coming from your trust, your ability to regulate your thoughts? Or did you have times, say day one where your mind starts to really think, gee, I got 8 more days of this?
Yeah, well, I think like I have an unrelenting self-belief that I can do the hard things, but also this. Like the bib track has been just a passion project of mine for so long. There's no way that I wasn't getting this done, and it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Like to be able to hike it for most people is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because you got to take so much time off work and all that. So even though that we were having these challenges on day one, like I guess I was probably more concerned with the crew. So I would come in on everything like, look, guys, we're not having a good day. We're having gut issues. The gut issues are going to be over. We are going to be okay. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to feel better soon. And then we're going to get this run done. And then tomorrow's going to be a good day. And we just kept relying on, all right, tomorrow's going to be a good day. We might not be having the best time right now, but we're going to have a good day eventually. And things are going to look up for us, and we are going to do this. But you just have to keep believing. You have to keep digging deep between now and then.
I heard a good quote about positivity, and it was something along those lines where it was like accepting that the reality of right now is not how we want, and that's okay. But tomorrow will be brighter. Like today might not be good, but tomorrow will be brighter. And just having that sort of belief that your time will come and good things are going to happen, and sort of trusting in that, and not sort of catastrophizing and everything's going wrong, it's going to screw up, but just being like, trust the process, things are going to turn sort of mindset.
Yeah, I think it's that famous quote, like this too shall pass. Like whether you're in the good time or the bad time, there's another time coming, and it could be better, it could be worse, but just do what you can and control what you can control in this given moment, and then adapt to whatever the next given moment is. Outside of those things, there's nothing you can really do. What's happened, and what's coming is coming, and just do what you can right now to at least keep yourself focused on the goal or relaxed in what you're doing so that you can be effective. I think that was definitely something that, you mentioned about being in the flow state. Throughout the journey, aside from a couple times, like I think cognitively, I was just really in the zone, like really dialed in throughout. There's a few things I did with that, like taking high doses of creatine, keeping my caffeine intake pretty high, taking like low doses of nicotine as well. And I think mentally that kept me so sharp throughout the entirety of this thing that I was able to make the right call when they popped up and be able to make sure the crew was dialed in. And I would say the creatine has been probably one of the biggest impacts. So if anyone's not doing that for cognition at the moment, definitely recommend.
How many calories were you eating per day?
I would say 6,000, maybe a little more. The goal was 10,000, but with the gut issues on day one, quickly reduced that down because it's not necessarily that you can't do it with the gut issues, but you're so uncomfortable and you're just having a terrible time. So the mental toll that took, I said, look, all right, the goal was we get 100 grams of carbs an hour. That's essentially going to square out to 10,000 calories a day once you add the main meals. We're going to almost half that on the run and then eat more at the stops. So say we went from 10,000 to 5,000 and then ate more at the stops. So maybe 6 or 7,000 I was getting. And on that day one was 7,000. It was 7,600 calories burnt on the run. Basal metabolic rate might have been 9,000 calories burnt for the day.
Yeah.
So we're definitely in a deficit, but it's not huge. You know, it's
Yeah.
not something that I can't survive. And I had a bit of fat mass on maybe 1 to 2 kilos. 1 kilo is 7,000 calories. So say if I had that 2 kilos, we're 14,000 calories in the bank that we can dip into. And I felt okay with that, I guess, being in a little bit more deficit, but I was recovering well still.
Yeah. And how was the body handling in the first couple of days? Like, was the swelling and inflammation all right?
First day was great. Like, obviously I finished tired and fatigued, but absolutely zero issues on day one as far as the legs and everything went. Day two was another day through the dunes where we're going up and down. That does tax the legs a fair bit. There's a little bit more vert, but I woke up that day really fresh. I ran again about that sort of 6:30 pace for the first 15K. Hit the next section of dunes. That's just technical terrain. It slows you down, but the body was feeling good. It was just starting to get that fatigue. I think from the reduction in calories over those first few days, trying to recover from the gut issues, that was meaning I was more fatigued. There was no major injuries popping up yet, but definitely throughout the day just getting slower and slower, I guess.
Yeah. All right, take me through the next couple of days.
So day two, say we're at halfway. We've done some dunes. Had a mate Daz jump in. We had about 70K left for the day. We'd already finished the night before, 2 hours back. This day was going relatively good. I was still pretty fresh. Definitely putting the hammer down when we could run. Still seeing a fair lot of snakes. We finally got off the dunes and then it was pretty overgrown. Wasn't too bad trails, still pretty runnable. And then we got through that day relatively unscathed until the evening. The sun went down. We made the decision, we better put our headlamps on. And my headlamp, it must have turned on in my bag because the second I went to put it on, just wouldn't turn on at all. So it's pitch black now. We're sharing one headlamp. We've got 15, 20 Ks to go. I can't quite remember. And we're just like, I know that this is going to take us all night. Like, we've got to walk so slowly now without a lamp. So we finally found some reception to call the crew, and they were able to hit some like back roads and come to an access point and get us a headlamp. But by this stage, we're already behind schedule by some time. Darren stepped out here so that I could just focus, lock in, try and run the last 10K into town. We were going from Denmark to Walpole this day, and we were going to go a little past Walpole, but with the debacle with no headlamp and now us being so far behind time, we stopped. So day two, we were officially, I'm not sure how many hours. We finished pretty late. It was like 9 o'clock. But we were 7Ks behind schedule, which wasn't huge, but it was a good hour that we were missing at least of time on feet. We stayed in the RV that night. Again, recovered pretty well. Woke up the next morning, back onto the dunes for a section, and Daz actually dropped off pretty quick. He got 10, 15K in the legs, and obviously this is something I've been training for, like this thrashing of the legs on the up and down terrain versus Darren. He's an awesome runner, but just that's really specific conditioning he was lacking, and he just dropped off the pace a little bit. The first 30K of the day went pretty well for me, not so much for Daz. It was raining, it was on the beach, it was a little bit tricky. But I got to maybe 40Ks feeling really good, and then we hit some flooded sections. There's like plains where it's really low down to the ground, and the next 20K, I'd run 50 to 100 meters or something, and then it'd be a massive puddle, like knee deep, waist deep for 100 meters, 200 meters. Like, it was super frustrating. Obviously some big ones, some small ones, but you're just not getting the opportunity to run and actually move through the space as much as you'd like. Eventually finally getting past this at maybe 60K, and then because I'd been moving so slowly, I didn't have my poles. I use poles when I'm on like vert or on the beach, and hit this section which was essentially gravel roads in the middle of nowhere, not technical at all, super runnable, but a lot of vert. They were going right up hills and right down hills, and I didn't have my poles, and it was just cooking my calves. So that was the first kind of day three. Was starting to get that minor injuries coming in where my Achilles are just tensing right up. I finished that day with like a calf pump like you wouldn't believe. Like, I've done like 1 million calf raises, the most jacked I've ever seen my calves. But the day pretty much went like that. A lot of flooding. It was pretty stressful for the crew as we neared towards the end. I had two 30K stretches, the first one being super flooded terrain, the last one being a little bit more of that, but eventually hit a diversion. The trail was absolutely crazy. So much flooding, so many trees down. I'm climbing over trees and then I'm dropping into like lakes almost and walking out of that, and then you hit another tree and you're back in the water. It was ridiculous. It took a couple hours to get to the next checkpoint, which my crew were planning to meet me at. They actually had traveled down a road and found this bridge had partially collapsed. They couldn't get through. They thought where they were positioned was my second last stop of the night. So they're now in a mad panic that I'm going to be coming through. They're not going to be there to give me any gear. They're not going to be able to see me, and I'm going to be waiting there in the dark by myself in the cold with no gear, nobody there, no phone reception. So there's this crazy panic going back at the crew that I've got no idea about. I've come up on this. There's a diversion. The trail was already terrible and it must get worse. So they've just got a sign up saying, like, don't even go through here. Just walk up the road until you get to that next stop. So they're all in this mad panic, and I'm just now going like, oh, okay, well, this is the road that they're meeting me on. I'll just start cruising up here. And it takes me about an hour and a half or so, and I finally, partway through, I get some phone reception. I see all their missed calls, all their panic. I get to calm their nerves, but come in there on that night and finally find them all. That was, for them, definitely the most stressful night because they thought I'm going to be out in the bush for 4 or 5 hours by myself until probably 1 a.m. And luckily it all worked out well. But yeah, not having having a GPS tracker that broke and not having phone signal and these things, these challenges that you don't really expect that start popping up now make it so much more stressful on the crew and the film crew as well. Like the film crew guys who are essentially there to be flies on the wall are like, stressing and running around and making calls and driving down dirt tracks. Like they did not sign up for that. And it just, it just became this crazy logistical nightmare to be out in the middle of nowhere. But eventually got in that night, and yeah, aside from the calves and just the general fatigue of a big day, I think it was another 110 kilometer day. It went okay. We just finished about 20 Ks earlier than we planned. So
I hope they were filming it all.
Oh man, yeah, they've got some crazy stuff on film.
Because when you're in the moment, it's just like everything like collapses, time collapses, and it just I'm sure it would have been so intense. So can't wait to see how that's captured and put together. What I find like is one of the most impressive things about this run and trail running is like it's not just running like on a straight line, a straight road. Like even 1,000 Ks in 9 days is like it's an incredible feat. But the trail, the team, you got to meet up, organize all these things. Like it's hard to actually put a metric on how difficult that is to the logistical side. Like, with a quantitative number, you sort of can understand it a little bit, but understanding the trails and the challenges, it's hard to sort of encapsulate how impressive some of these things are.
Yeah, well, no two steps the same. And you're going up, like I say, at the start, you're on sand dunes, you're on the beach, you're going through really tight overgrown forest. You then get into the forest that's a bit opened up. You're going through the giant tingle trees that are probably the biggest in the state, towering over you, totally different bushland there. And then you're into plains where it's flooded and it's rocky, and sometimes you're even on the roads, but then the roads aren't the same. Like they're gravel roads in the middle of nowhere with corrugation, and, they're super steep up and down. So there's always a different challenge that's throwing at you. And I think across the week, obviously, close to 1,000 kilometers run, but 20,000 meters of vertical gain and pretty similar descending as well, which is, a few times climbing Mount Everest, which is crazy to think of it in that way.
Yeah. So day 4 is next. Day 4, what's happening now?
So day 4, we're now just outside of Northcliffe, and this was kicking off to be a pretty good day. Like I'd come in, struggling a fair bit the night before being so late, and now we're 20 Ks in the hole. But this was meant to be a recovery day. Like I'd planned some big days, and then I'd planned some short days so that we can try and balance it out and let the body recover. And if anything went wrong, we could catch up. And that's essentially what this day was. It was going to be a later start, recover, chill out, ease through the day, 86K. Ended up, we were going to have to hit, I think, 108 to catch up and get back to schedule. So I'm glad I put that in there. So we had that opportunity to do so. First 20 Ks, pretty runnable. Next 20 Ks, almost runnable for the whole first 45, essentially. I think I did it in about 5 hours for the 40Ks. So, pretty solid. Still on trail, not as flooded as the morning before. And then there's just some like farm tracks and stuff, which were, definitely muddy and gross, but not flooded, which was good. Moved through that really well in the morning and then came up on the lunch break. Jordan Dinger, mate, joined me at this point, and we had a 33K stretch, which then took the same amount of time as the 45 I'd just done. Like, it was so hilly. We went straight uphill. We were moving towards Pemberton. The Gloucester Tree was the next meeting point. It was beautiful through there, absolutely stunning, but you're just going straight up and down hills, really dense forest. A lot of trees had fallen over in recent storms, like trees as big as your car. Like, these things are crazy. You can't even, like, at that point, my legs are too gassed to climb over them, so we're having to bush bash our way around these things, and there's a whole, like, crater left in the ground that you've got to make it around. But we made it through that in about 5 hours again. And then the final 30-ish to go with another mate, Jonty Calder, who jumped in with me. This is where I started to fade. Like, we'd stopped for our snacks. All of the times that we stopped, no matter how good I was feeling, I would leave and I'd get about 5 minutes down the road and just feel terrible. I don't know if it was the energy being diverted to, like, my guts because I was now eating, or just the warmth and blood flow that moved away from my legs because I would just finish in so much pain.
Would you sit down, like, on these breaks?
Yeah, I'd sit down, but not for long, just long enough to get some food in. That'd only be 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes. But every time I'd get up and leave and just be feeling terrible, which was depressing because there's no opportunity to change it either. Like, if you are feeling good and you're coming in, you can't just skip it and then do the break 10Ks later or 5Ks later, because there's just no possible way to get access. You have to take the time. You have to stop. You have to fill your pack up with water. You have to get some calories down. You have to charge your watch, charge your phone, whatever it is. There's just things that you can't skip, which makes it a challenge, because when you're feeling good, you've only got so much time that you can feel good for, and then you kind of know that the inevitable is going to come. But we got through maybe 15K of that last 30K leg. The sun started going down, and then the body just started, like, really fatiguing. Like, I was doing my best to just sit on Jonty and keep moving forward, but I don't know if it was really that my body was failing or the temptation, but there was a road just 2Ks before where we planned to stop. This is like one of the only times there's two roads close together. We're going for 108Ks, and I just text him, like, I'm not doing that. Like, we're stopping, we're calling it at 106. It's still a big day. We finished the day 2Ks behind because we had caught up all the rest. But it was an interesting thing for me because I'm like, if that road wasn't there, I'm sure I could have got to the 108. Like, it wasn't that much further. But I came in that night feeling pretty rough. Like, that was the night where the film crew were a bit worried. They're like, are we allowed to keep him going at this point? Shannon and Jack, they've seen me like that before, but the film crew, having never seen anything like that, they're like, this guy's, on the brink of failure, of, his body failing him. Is it ethical for us to keep him going? And obviously, it's what I wanted, and it's what Shannon and Jack told him it was going to do, but it was not a good night. Yeah.
So what happened after that? I guess the body's starting to give way a little bit.
So we got, I'd had all of these things, recovery boots, not the recovery boots, like compression tights. I've got Jack massaging me. I've got him looking after my feet. He's a medic. He's about to, like, finish his paramedic degree. So he was, like, doing all the medical stuff, checking blood pressure, all those things. I think even just coming in and getting those tests done and recognizing, okay, I'm okay. The numbers aren't that bad. I'm going to survive. Get the calories back in. Get some sleep. Once going through all those things and having a shower and getting the body, like, a bit of a workover, I'd typically feel okay. I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up and feel pretty good. So even though it was the worst night, I think the fact each time, because, there was no real good nights, but each time I would wake up in the morning, I'm like, all right, I've recovered, well enough to run. We can keep doing this, and I think that was, like, each day built a little bit more confidence, because I'd come in absolutely just rattled, and I'm like, well, last night was worse, arguably, or the same, and you still got up and you still did this today. You still ran 110Ks, so you can do it again. It might be slow, but we'll get it done.
What was the sleep like? Were you able to Because your body, like, let's say, your body's probably obviously sending all these messages like, Macka, stop fucking running. But like, were you able to sleep through the night, or was your body so, like, your nervous system so stressed that, you just kept waking up?
Yeah, I think it's been it's been 9 days now, and yeah, my sleep's still not good. Like on the track, as soon as I finished, my core body temperature would just plummet, and I would go from being warm or like an all good temperature over the jacket on or whatever to shivering, and my entire body would stiffen right up, and it'd be tough to move. Just to get in and out of the car would be impossible. Meanwhile, I was running 10 minutes earlier. It would be so instant that would happen, and then I would have a hot shower and I kind of loosen back up again. But then my core body temperature would plummet again after the shower. So I'd have to I'd get long tights, I'd get a long sleeve shirt, I'd get a hoodie on, I'd go to bed, and a few hours after being asleep, it's like my body, the resting heart rate would just not drop. I wasn't always tracking it because we were charging my watch a lot, but it felt like I'd have earplugs in, I could hear my heart rate, if that makes sense. Like the boof, 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 but way quicker than normal, so like 90 or 100 beats per minute. And that would just cook me slowly. Like I'd be in all my warm gear because I was so cold, and then I'd wake up 2 to 3 hours later and all of those clothes would be soaked through with sweat. And it was weird, it doesn't match my hydration either. Like it's like the inflammation and the damage that my body's doing to itself, it's trying to push out through sweat is the only way I can describe it. And that's still happening. Like I've had to wash, well, not me, my darling wife, Shannon, has washed the sheets essentially every night since we've been home because I've been trying everything. Like I'm trying to sleep in a long sleeve, but nothing on the bottom, or totally covered up, or totally like half covered up, like in a singlet. Just can't figure it out, man. My body's just cooked, and I'm just waking up every night like covered in sweat, and then I'm so wet, and the bed is soaked through that then I've got to go get like towels and other blankets and try and figure it out to get warm again because I'm wet, and now my clothes are making me cold, and then how do I warm back up and then it not happen again? It's been definitely the biggest impact, and it's now impacting like the rest of my life because like I'm just tired. Like, I just need a good night's sleep and I can't get it.
Yeah. That's the thing that's like incredible about this. Not only the like preparation before and the unforeseen challenges during, but like the post effect. Like, you might look at this challenge like 9 days, like what an incredible effort, but it's like there's so much more that goes into it. And just your body recovering. Like it's crazy to think that the body, is an incredible vessel that can handle this stress, but clearly it's had some side effects too.
Yeah, it's definitely something I didn't expect. Obviously, I like to control the things I can, and I got really strong. I got really fit. The actual main injury that I've come away with, I'd actually like kind of forgotten. Like my tibant, like the shin muscle, I'd kind of forgotten to train that because I knew it was going to be an issue. And like 4 weeks out, I started training it. So like even the one issue I do have was just like I just forgot about it in time. Maybe if I trained it for 6 weeks, it would have been stronger and we would have not had an issue. But all the things I could controlled well. But yeah, things like sleep, and just I've done all the blood tests and all that. Like those things that really there's nothing I could do about them. And most of them return to normal well. The sleep is just the main impact at the moment.
Yeah. So where are we at with the run?
Call that day, I think it was day 5 or day 4. We're just outside of Pemberton at this point. We're going the next morning, Pemberton to Bailing Up. I think we're at day 5. I can't remember. Yeah. Pemberton to Bailing Up. And this started much like the day before finished, like with lots of hills, lots of climbing up and down. I think this was one of the most vert days that we had. We started super early. Again, I recovered well. I got up. Like I just don't know how I was doing it at this point. But yeah, day 5, we clocked the first 38 Ks in maybe 5.5, 6 hours. Is the slowest going, I think, stretch of the whole trip, unless something had gone wrong. Like at that point, I was still moving okay. Calves were sore. Things were sore generally. Makes sense. I've ran a lot. But this was just the slowest going day, and we'd actually forgot to charge my watch the night before, so had to do that in the morning. We kicked off thinking it might take me 4 hours. We'd charge it again. It had been 6 hours. Hadn't had that opportunity. It hit 10%. I've had to like run back and find some hikers that I just passed who offered to charge my watch, which was good. It was like a nice little like mental break from what I was doing, and have a chat with people who were just, completely amazed at what was going on, and like they were super excited, and they've actually reached out after like, we were those guys, like, which was pretty cool. But yeah, from there, after I saw those guys, there'd been a couple diversions, which I think I was prepared for 33K and ran 40-ish K. It ended up being a little bit longer, but got through to the crew, and we had like a lunch break there. After that, the rest of the day, I had the guys jumping in with me. Jack jumped in for a section. Jake Reed jumped in for a section. Shannon jumped in for a section. Jake Reed jumped back in for the last section. It was pretty unrunnable most of the day. There was one stretch of like 10K that Shannon jumped in on. Again, when I could run. I was running 6-minute pace or 550s. It was crazy that my body could still do that, but there was just so many sections of that day that you couldn't run. It was either straight uphill or straight downhill. Some of the downs I may have been able to run, but my legs were just cooked. I didn't have that control anymore. They were just that little bit too steep. So we run the flats when we could run the flats, and we got to Donnelly River Village and had maybe 40K left to go to bailing up, and we took off. The sun was just starting to go down, and the trail was really like overgrown. So if you're going through the bush during the day and there's like a branch in your way, you can kind of still see past the branch. When it's nighttime and you've got your headlamp, just that branch lights up and you've got no idea what's behind it. So when it's overgrown, you essentially slow down to a walk because you can only see what's in front of you by that 3-4 meters. Like there's just no opportunity to run. So we had that 40K left. It might have been planned to take 4 hours, sorry. It was pretty runnable, but it was just so overgrown that we couldn't do that. So we got to 96K, was coming in, and they had been debating and I had been internally debating, like, I think we're going to have to call it here. I think this is the time for us today. It's like 9 p.m. Yeah, we have 20K to go, but at this point, it's going to take us like 4 more hours and it's not worth it. We made that call, and it was one of the best calls that we made across the week. We got to bed, we parked the RV right there, got straight in, got to bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then started at 4 a.m. So woke up maybe 3 or 3:30, got enough sleep, and then one of my good mates, Shep and Liam, they met us down there, and we got rolling straight away. Like, I was fearful that that section would still be super overgrown, what we'd just come out of. It would be similar, but it wasn't. It was pretty open. We could run first thing in the morning, 4 a.m. We're actually running along. We're making good time. There's some sections going into Bailing Uptown that have some pretty big climbs up and down, but we made our way through them really well. And this was probably the first day we're like, this is it. Finally, we're having that good day. I'm running like 5:30 pace when we get into Bailing Uptown. You got a good like 6 to 10K stretch that leads into town and leads out of town. That's super runnable. The first probably point, we're 5.5 days in, that we came to a stop like earlier than the crew were expecting. And like that whole day then continued like that. All my family came out, all my friends came out that day. We were closing in on Collie, which my family are kind of at the bottom of the hill there. So it was just a really good day. And then we got to about, I think it was 95K. This was going to be a big day, 117K. We had those few Ks from the other days to catch up on, but everything was looking really good. We took off on the final stretch of 23K. I knew we had some uphill and some downhill, and then it was pretty flat and runnable. We got through the uphill and the downhill okay. I was getting pretty fatigued. We had started at 4 a.m. It was now 8:30, maybe 15K to go. I think it was 11K to go. Again, my watch buzzes just to say 10% battery. And I'm like, oh my God, I've run 110K. There's no way I'm going to lose battery and lose this day. This is super detrimental because we need to track everything for the record keeping process. In hindsight, I think it would have saved anyway. It would have just turned off and saved the activity. But at the time, when you're that deep, you don't really know how you're going to react. And we just instantly stressing out, like, we've got to sprint this final 8K into the finish. Like, we're calling them saying, you got to get there. You've got to run a charger backwards. They are so stressed out that they get lost and they run the wrong way. So that's all off the cards. Like, eventually they turn around and they do make it back to us. We saved the activity. We started a new my watch lasted just on that 1% for like just enough time to get that in. But in that like stress, it just absolutely cooked me. Like, aside from the few days ago where I was just fried coming in, that was like the lowest point because I was just like, oh my God, I'm 110 k's in. I've just sprinted. I say sprint, but like, 6-minute pace at night on the trail. It's pretty rough. And just cooked and kind of like, it's the only time on the whole thing I just sat down on the side of the trail. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it took like the 5 minutes. Jake was on the phone to Shannon just chatting about logistics, and I was like, no, I'm just going to sit down. Like, I'm so sick of this. We got in. Obviously, the film crew's all there. Jack had got the charger out to us. We kind of walked in. It was 10:30, maybe. It was pretty late. And I just didn't really say anything to anybody. I was just like, get me in the car. We went back to the RV, which we'd got to a caravan park that night because we needed a shower and stuff. But yeah, that was a pretty rough one because the whole day, 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. had gone amazingly. And then just, again, we just couldn't have a good day. That's what it felt like. The trail was just trying to keep it from us. Like, we'd finally had an amazing day, and then the watch dies. Just something so in our control that we fucked up, and then it was going to be like game over. It was just like, it was pretty frustrating, I guess. Like, we just, like I said, we just couldn't have a good day. We just couldn't have a good day start to finish. Felt like people didn't want it to happen, I guess, or the trail gods didn't want it to happen.
The trail gods.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much of this run rides on, I guess, the watch as well. Something so almost innocuous, like a watch being able to record the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to do the run, yet alone it rely on some digital technology to accurately capture it.
Yeah, and we had all these logistical challenges with that across the thing, like either phone's dying, watch dying, GPS tracker dying. It's just something that, again, you're trying to control as much as you can. But like the GPS live tracker, for example, I'm the only one with access to my website. So even when we got a replacement, nobody else could see it except for my crew. So it's just like, you're getting all these messages like, where'd your live tracker go? I'm like, mate, I can't fucking do anything about it now.
Yeah.
But we got through it, That was day 5. The next morning we started probably 6 a.m. So it was a short night's sleep. We knew we were, about 10 Ks behind schedule, but we'd caught up a fair way. Ben Leeson, a guy who barely had met before, knew who each other were, but he came out and committed to doing that whole day. So 110 Ks. This was going to be the section I'm most familiar with, like near my house. We went through 40 Ks, like just flying, like super cruisy. I'd done it a bunch of times before. I knew where to go. We beat the crew there again. This was like a good stretch of running that we managed, but then we hit like the most exposed section of the whole track, not really any tree cover, super open path, which would be like dream running, except it was the hottest day of the whole time. It was like 26 degrees, which is not like crazy, but when you're running and when you have been running all day and you've only got limited supplies to take on, it's pretty rough. This was a 47-kilometer stretch with no access points for the crew to come and help us. So we had to play it super safe. There was a lot of walking in that section. My legs were pretty fried at this point. Hamstring was sore, calves were sore. We did make it through that 47K stretch, like relatively okay. There's a little bit of running in there as it cooled back down. And then we came on to the crew at the Harvey Quindanning Road, this random place in the middle of nowhere essentially. And to fix my calves, we put heel wedges in my shoes, which awesome. Like, they took so much stress off the Achilles. I also changed shoes into like just some road runners, like just some stability shoes. And all this was awesome. Like, massive calls by everybody and like really smart, and like saved a lot of the issues that I'd been experiencing, and we could get off to a good start on that next leg. We ended up maybe going 15K on the next leg. It's like a 40K stretch. I'd done this crew sheet, of course, like for all the guys, like logistics, and I purposely left out a bunch of roads that are on the map that are not acceptable for like the RV to go down. I didn't even think about this at the time when they mentioned it, but they're like, look, there's another access road. We're going to come and meet you guys just up here. And I'm like, well, I don't have it on the list. I can't remember why, but if they can get there, they can get there. Awesome. Let's let it happen. So they came and met us about 15K later, gave me a bit of a hamstring massage, did some other things to the legs, just trying to keep me moving. And then, we took off again. We're kind of in our own little world, Ben and I, at this point. Like, we're having our own rough time. Like, legs are fried. We're going up a lot of vert. This section was probably meant to take us 5-6 hours to finish at 11 p.m. We're looking at a 2 a.m. finish with the way we've been moving. Little do we know, and honestly, the biggest story here is what happened to the crew. we eventually made it. Ben and I made it. Not much to report there. It was a shit day. We got 110 Ks done, but the crew in this entire period of this like 5-6 hour period in the middle of the night, in the middle of the dwelling up forest, have been trying to get from that previous road access point to where we're finishing that entire period of time. They're getting sent down. They've departed where they found us and gone to the main road. They could see the main road, like they're a few hundred meters away, and they come up on these prescribed like burns where the whole thing is like blocked off. There's no way to get through. So they make a turn. They go back another way. They're taking all these back roads. They're in like legit 4-wheel drive tracks now, trying to get out. The car's all being scraped. They then come on. The Boddington police have like shut down this other area for some other thing. Jack goes for a walk. They said that they reckon it was like a meth lab or something, but this whole thing's blocked off. They can't get through. Then they're getting sent into another direction. I don't even know how they didn't run out of fuel after all this, but it was essentially 4 hours of bush bashing to try and get out to where we were. They're super panicked. They're super stressed. They're on the phone with the Boddington police trying to get them to like let them through in this area, and they're just being ignored. They're trying to make calls to other people because they've had to drop the RV basically on some random side of the road somewhere. But yeah, after all that stress, eventually they make it to us. But the RV's at the total opposite end of the town. So they have none of my gear. They have Ben's car had been parked at the finish line, but we don't have food. We don't have water. We don't have any gear. We don't have a change of clothes. It's just get in the car. We'll tell you about it later. Forget it. Start eating. And it's 2 a.m. by this point. We'd done 110 Ks. I'm like falling asleep, standing up at this point. I'm falling asleep in the front seat. I'm trying to eat and refuel, and it's just not happening. We get to the film crew's accommodation. It was our only option to crash out for the night. We go in there. Jack's taking my, medical observations, and I'm just passing out. Like, this was a really big day. So tough to be awake at until 2 a.m. after, not really a good night the night before either. Had a terrible night's sleep. I walk in, we sit down, I fall asleep on the couch for 5 minutes. I get taken to the shower, we sit back down, I fall asleep on the couch. I finally get back into the bed, and I'm asleep for maybe an hour, and like these possums, like the most terrifying noise I've ever heard, like they start fighting in the roof or something, like, and I'm just skitzed out at this point, man. I work, I'm like, where am I? Like, I got to go like pee, and I'm like, I don't know where I am to go pee. I'm just like stressing in this room. I thought I was still on the trail because it was just like dark and, like a bit of like the ambience. I was pretty scared, but Shannon was there. She like got up and like helped me out. We got this, the next day was going to be our latest start because of that, 2 a.m. finish. By the time we even got to sleep, it was probably 3 a.m. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep, like wake up at 5, and then it's time to go at 6:37. It was like a 40-minute drive back to where we were because of that whole debacle the night before. And then this was going to be the second last day. So it was day 8, I guess. Not a big day planned. We knew we were starting late. We knew that we were on the final home stretch, and this was also a section that I've run a lot before. So 7 a.m. we get there, we start. I run about a K. I realized I didn't start my watch. Run back a K. Started again. Absolute nightmare. But then pretty runnable for the next 30K. This is when we found out Aaron had actually finished as well. So I had maybe 200 Ks to go. I knew he'd started 2 days before me. And I knew it took him 9 days and 4 hours. So at this point, it's day 8, but that means it's 7 days and X hours or whatever. Yeah. So I had about 48 hours in the bank to get the 200 Ks done, and I'd been doing 100 Ks in maybe 16 hours. So I knew I had a bit of time on my sleeve with a little bit of a rest in there. We got through 30K. We ran through town again. Jack jumped in with me. Super runnable through town. Again, whenever we could run, I was running. So that was really good. But then we obviously had to sit down again. And coming out of that lunch stop was pretty painful. Those heel wedges that I'd put in my shoes to offload the calves had now been loading the tib ant, my shin muscle. Every time I'm going downhill, it's just really compressing that. The pain is getting pretty unbearable. Like I'm on a time span of like every 3.5 hours you can have X amount of paracetamol, X amount of ibuprofen, and I'm like counting down. I'm like, Jack, what's the time? When can I get a paracetamol, bro? Like I'm dying. We need to figure out something, and we need to lift this, or we need to get something else, or we need to give me more. I don't know. I don't care what it is. We need to do something. because I've never been in that sort of pain before. It'd be a 10 out of 10. Half an hour after the paracetamol, it'd work down to a 9. It'd work down to an 8. It'd still be a 6. That was the lowest it would get, and then it would work its way back up. So I'd have these periods, like now this last stretch was 50 Ks. I'd have these periods of maybe an hour where I can like either power hike or slow jog at like 7-minute pace, so like 8K an hour. And then I'd go back down to like walking and like limping and barely moving for another, hour. So half an hour until I get the paracetamol, half an hour afterwards. Crazy pain. Worst I've experienced, and it's the one thing that's lingered since. I've got no range in my left foot right now. Like to move it manually, I can move my ankle, but for the muscle to do it, it just doesn't work still, which is the one issue that I'm trying to figure out. It's a bit frustrating because everything else has gone so well. But we clocked in 86 Ks this day. There's a fair bit of vert, a lot of climbing and technical stuff that happened at night time, which was a little bit frustrating because you're tired, now you're climbing over rocks and stuff in the middle of the night, you're getting lost on the trail. We come in about 11 p.m. and that's about to be that final stretch. So
how did you feel like getting, knowing the finish line was coming close? Obviously your body's starting to give way, and mentally, you're not getting sleep, obviously pushing everything to the limit. But how did you feel psychologically knowing that the finish line was so close and you knew what time you had to get?
I think it would go up and down, right? Because there was these periods where I could run, and the time when I was told Aaron finished and it was in this time, that was a period I could run, and I'm just immediately like, awesome guys, we've got this in the bag, we can absolutely smash this. And then 2 hours later, when the pain has got so much in my tibia that I'm, reduced to a crawl almost, you ask me at that point, or, when I'm reflecting to myself, I'm like, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. And if we do this, I'm going to have to walk 20, for 40 hours straight without a rest, because I can only move at 5K an hour. We got 20-ish hours. I mean, we got X amount of time to go, blah, blah, 200 Ks. We're barely going to make this if I walk the entire thing without stopping. It was those conflicting sort of emotions at different times based on like what my body was feeling, which was, pretty challenging because, when I could run and it would be awesome. And that's the way that I wanted to do this, I guess. Whereas on those times where I was reduced to a walk, it's like when you, I don't know, when you get a birthday present that you don't want, for example, like I'm finally achieving the thing that I wanted to achieve, but I'm walking it in because my body is so wrecked. Like for me, it's not like about getting the record doing this thing. It's like, I want to run the Bibbulmun track. That's what I said from the get-go. I want to run the Bibbulmun track one day. And now, like essentially, I'm walking it in because another guy, he finished and his time was this, and this is the only way I can beat him. And like, those are things that weren't on my radar, weren't the reason I was doing it. I wanted to run the Bibbulmun track. I can't run, and now I'm not running, but I'm still doing it for this thing that isn't really the real reason I was doing it. It was a I don't know. I don't know if I'm even articulating it right because it was a weird emotion to deal with. Like I'm getting the thing that I want, but it's not what I want. And it's not the way that I wanted to do it, but I'm still doing it.
Did what happened then with the psychology of that then? Like, were you able to run most of the last day?
Well, so those feelings were kind of off and on. I guess, the last day, if we just sort of breezed through the start of it, we got in at 11 p.m. I got an hour's rest and did, ate some food and stuff. We started at 1 a.m. for the final push. It was going to be 150 Ks. And we were, moving okay at times and really bad at others, much like the day before. So it was kind of with about 90K to go that these feelings were really getting the best of me, where I was really feeling like, man, fuck this. Like, we're so close to the end and I can't run, and this is not the way I wanted to do it. I still have to finish now because we're so close. And I could literally, at this point, when it was, 85, 90K to go, it's like literally, it's inevitable. If you walk this from here and don't stop, you'll get the record. So it was this really weird thing of like, I don't have to push. I want to push. My body won't let me push. Like I can't run. Walking this in will be the most boring thing that I could ever think of, and it's not at all the way I want to do it. But I'm like now having to do it. It's this feeling of, I have to do it for other people. And then on reflection of that, of like, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for others? Is when I then thought, well, you've got a whole team of people here that believe in you and believe in what you wanted to do. And they were willing to either invest in the documentary, be here to film the documentary, barely get any sleep for a week crewing, being your medic, being your wife and looking after you. All these guys that have driven hundreds of kilometers out to the middle of nowhere to run with you and to make sure that you can achieve this goal. Yeah, maybe you're not doing it for you anymore, but you also like never really were. All these people were here for you to help you do it, and you owe them that in return. So that was a really big sort of turning point. I think I went like, I was not having a good time for maybe an hour. I'd like thinking of all those negative emotions, and then maybe the next hour was thinking of all the positivity that I'd experienced over the past week, and that was like, all right, we're back. I figured it out. Like, okay, this might suck for the next 24 hours or the next 15 hours or whatever it is, but you have a bigger purpose. It's not just about you, and it's not just about you wanting to do this run. All these people have come together, and it's something that's like truly, I guess, like for people to care as much about the thing that I care about as I do is not as, that doesn't happen as often as you think it might. And I could sense that in everybody that was involved across the week. And that's what really like flipped the script for me and made me push that final leg in. And yeah, push we did. We ran a lot of that last 80Ks, and the guys that were with me were like, I don't know how you're doing this, man. And it's like, for me, that's when it shifted from my thing and being about me to being about all the people around me.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible turning point on the last day to sort of really kick you home, because I think when you do such challenging things, it's really easy to go internally and myopic and really focus on yourself. But near the finish line, it's redirecting that purpose to involve everyone. I think that's powerful. And like you said, there's been so much effort and energy and investment from all these people. So yeah, I think what an incredible turning point to help you, to kick you home.
Yeah, cheers, man. It was pretty powerful, and it was what I guess relied on for that last sort of 12-hour stretch where, I kind of knew I had it in the bag, but I'm like, let's put on a show. Let's really achieve something that, no one can take away from you. And having all the people that joined me on those final legs and physically be a part of it, not just, offering support, but they were there and they were pushing me because I was hurting, and they were seeing that and they were like, look, Macka, obviously they told me this after, but they're like, you've been a part of our goals. There's things that were really important to us and you viewed them as equally important and just as important as your goals, and you were there to support us. And now's the time that we actually get to return the favor. And yeah, it's, I guess, like when you're always the boss and you're put on the pedestal and like you're the big dog, I guess, you don't always get that back. Or even at races, when you finish at the front, no one's really there. So like you finish and like you see, I might see Shannon or my family, but you don't get the same experience that the other guys get and that you get to give them. And for them, they're like, this is the time we get to give it back. So it was pretty sick.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I feel like when you go on a journey, there's so many moments where everyone's got their own lives, their own pursuits, and then it's sort of like this big culmination of everyone's effort and energy into a thing, and it's becomes quite special. And then for you to like realize, I think that's something as humans we don't really realize and understand and appreciate how much people do care about us, especially when it's like a bilateral investment of energy you're both giving. For it to all come together and for you to feel that is probably very powerful, because I find it difficult on my sort of entrepreneurial journey, especially like with the podcast, to really feel that at times. So I can appreciate how special it must be to feel the weight of people's care for you.
Yeah, just to have that buy-in and to, I guess, not even just feel it, but see it. Like it was 2 a.m., 4 a.m., these guys have joined me out in the middle of the rain and like in the middle of the dark night in the middle of nowhere to run that final stretch in with me. And that was pretty special and something that's going to sit with me forever, I guess. And yeah, that final walk in, I don't know, I was doing it and like reminiscing of, I don't know what a good example is, but like Jesus carrying the cross or something, like I can see where I'm going. I've got all the people I care about with me. We are going to make it. You just got to keep walking. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing. So what happened straight after the run? Like, did you take me through the recovery, the first initial after you don't have to run anymore? How did you handle that?
Well, my body pretty much broke down, Like I came in with the last few days with all those injuries starting to build and a lot of swelling in my legs, and that was the biggest thing. The swelling's kind of like a protective mechanism, I guess, on the body. Like it seemed to stop everything hurting. Like I had these issues, but I was so swollen that I didn't really know the full extent of them. So it took a good 4 days at least for that to come down. And when I say swelling, whatever you're imagining, triple it. My legs were like party animal balloons, just so filled with fluid. It took those few days to improve there. I was on crutches for a little bit. The physical issues are kind of still happening, like I said, with the sleep. But as far as injuries and long-term injuries goes, I don't think there's really anything major, just that shin muscle, which I knew on those final legs I was pushing it really hard. I did figure out how to fix it. Those heel lifts I just took back out and it dropped from a 10 to a 6, but it had already been 250 Ks of wrecking it before I did that. Obviously had a lot of things pop up straight after, elation, that we've finally done it. It was a pretty special moment. There was a lot of people there that shared in that moment. But yeah, we've had some challenges afterwards getting the record ratified. There was a mistake that I made on day 2, which I totally knew about. I totally was open and honest about that. What I did ended up cutting off 2 Ks. I missed a turn.
Didn't you add an extra 2 Ks though when you had to get charged through the wire?
Yeah, right. Well, that I definitely added. But my run and Aaron's run ended up 2 kilometers different. So I just sort of put it all together and I was like, okay, well, you ran 2 Ks left. Surely we can do a time penalty or something, is what I emailed them to suggest. And at this one, it feels like that 2 kilometer discrepancy, because I was open and honest about it and they know I wasn't cheating, they've tried to find other issues with my run to not ratify it. Because yeah, Aaron is a traditional ultra guy, and he did break the record. And now that I don't know, it feels like they're oh, this fucking kid, this road runner's trying to take the record, when it was my idea. I started preparing first. I asked Aaron to go a couple days first so that I'd have someone to chase. But yeah, now it's I'm the bad guy. Like I said before, I've lost that underdog status because now I'm the guy who can do this. But yeah, I finished maybe 4.5 hours ahead of Aaron. There's the 2K discrepancy, but there's also all of these huts along the bib track, which is not on the rules that you needed to visit them all.
Yeah.
So I started visiting them all. There's a logbook that you sign your name on and stuff. And I started doing that, and I was doing it for the first day, and I did it for a bunch of other ones. But I stopped doing it when I was cooked. I was under fatigue. I was like, look, you're out here, you're trying to do this run. Aaron's there. The crew's like, why are you doing the logbooks? You don't need to do it. It's not on the rules. So we stopped doing logbooks pretty much. And now they're flagging. They're like, everybody else who did it has done the logbooks. You got to do the logbooks. I'm like, nobody else has done it as fast as me. Fuck. We're trying to break a record here, man. I thought this would help us do that. But yeah, now they've pulled up on the lack of hut visitation, which again, like I said, wasn't in the rule book. They've now put it in there, which I think actually gives a bit of weight to our appeal, because we're like, look, you've decided now to include this on the rules because it wasn't there. In doing that, you've recognized that it wasn't clear for me to do that. So how was I supposed to know? We're hopefully getting that overturned. There was a couple other things they mentioned as well, like the live tracker. I never sent them the live tracker link because it had broken, but we've got that data. We can send them. It just broke. And it's technical difficulties, nothing you can do about. And then the other one was the announcement of my attempt. I didn't announce it on their website, but I've been all over social media, and their Instagram account shared it. They've definitely seen it. Maybe the adjudicator didn't see my announcement, but the announcement's there and they saw it. So a bunch of the stuff they flagged, I have reasonable grounds to sort of argue. It's just been a bit frustrating because you've got all these people that fuck, I don't know them. They obviously don't know me. They've just seen it got denied, and they're like, oh no, this guy is bullshit, shows really bad character, all this stuff. I'm like, you don't fucking know me. You watched this whole thing, you said it was awesome, and now you've decided oh, we did this wrong thing, and Aaron's better. It's Aaron and I don't have beef with each other. I just did what I thought was the right decision to do at the time. Eventually, we finished, and I'd be fine with the time penalty. it's just, one of those things that's now like a little bit frustrating just to hear from people that I'm like, you have no bearing. You have no idea who I am. You have no bearing on what I did. What I did objectively, take away whatever the FKT website does, was fucking amazing. And if you size it up against any other endurance run, it's one of the best endurance runs on the planet. And now I've done all that and there's no, like, I can't even get the recognition. And then within that, I feel like it's false recognition because I'm like, well, they won't fucking ratify it. But the saving grace is obviously we've got this documentary coming out.
Yeah.
So come April, everyone's going to see what happened. They're going to know what I did. They're going to know what we went through. And they're going to see what the crew went through as well. It's not going to be a typical documentary about this sort of space and this sort of endurance activity. So I'm pretty pumped for that.
Yeah. You've got the moral victory at least, but I'm sure it's frustrating. To be honest, like, at the end of the day, this is just from my perspective, like, whatever, like, fucking title that is, like, at the end of the day, you got the record. I think everyone would know that. I think even Aaron 100% deep down knows that he got beaten. And just because people all agree that would, there's a bunch of rules that they made up, this organisation, to me, I don't know, it's probably fucking frustrating because it's that, that formal recognition of, like, you've got the record. But we spoke about it. There's always that hidden order, hidden benefit of things, but hopefully common sense can prevail and you can.
Yeah, well, I feel like I say, we've got all these appeals in place, and I think once they take it higher up, whoever's above this dude or this adjudicator is going to be like, oh, bro, you kind of fucked up here. Like, to me, obviously, I made a few mistakes, but I was open and honest, and then the guys clarified them all afterwards on the website, and like, oh, here's the rules that everyone should follow now to make sure it does. Make sure what happened to Macka doesn't happen to you. Someone's going to look at that and be like, well, you can't do that either. Macka still did the run. He still did it faster than everybody else has ever done it. The rules might be changed now. Give him something reasonable. Give him a time penalty, whatever. Still done it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. I know what I did out there and people watched.
Yeah. All right. So where to from here? What's on the horizon? I guess your body's still recovering, but how's your, also take me through what's happening with the documentary. When's that?
So the documentary should be coming out in April. We'll definitely be doing some premiere screenings. So we're pretty confident. Just the people that were involved in the end. There's a lot of, like, names and faces, and they'll have their own audiences. So we should be able to fill up a few studios. We'll do, like, the big red carpet launch. Yeah. We'll do a couple more showings, and there's also, like, the World Trails Conference that's coming, I think, in May. So we'll do some more, like, niche screenings, I guess, here and there. But the ultimate goal is, like, get it on Netflix or one of those big streaming platforms, which, from what we shot and the story that we created, I'm pretty confident we'll be able to do. So, yeah, looking for an April release there, and maybe the premiere comes first, or it's in April and then the launch on streamers comes after. But it's about that timeline, and we've got a few interviews and stuff to complete post, and then the edits will start coming through. So, yeah, super excited for that. Personally, next for me, this was always the thing for me. Like, this is my Olympic gold medal, I guess. So I've done it now. That's the main thing. I'll go back to running and go back to, I guess, focusing a bit more on my business. Like, the last 12 months of prep, been a lot of time spent on docker logistics, run logistics, on the training, and the business, I wouldn't say suffered, but I haven't been able to put as much of myself into it as I would have liked. So really excited to get back into the swing of things there and not have this thing looming over me for so long. So those are the main things. I don't really have a next challenge or anything like that. That's the thing people keep asking me. I barely finished this one. They're like, what's next? What's next? I'm like, I just want to chill out for a bit, to be honest. Like, this was the thing, and most of the things I've done in the past have been the build up to this thing. So there's no, at the moment, next thing, I guess.
How do you feel about the like you said, it's your gold medal. So, like, how does that feel? Do you feel quite fulfilled from it, or do you feel like it's still in the processing, digestion phase of this event?
Well, I think, like, had the record been ratified instantly, it'd be, job done, completed. But I think I'm still feeling positive about the appeal that we'll be making. But if that doesn't go through, then it's probably going to leave a bit of sour taste in my mouth. But I think the benefit, of having the documentary come out and having that it's probably 6 months away, having it kind of removed from what's happened and being able to be viewed as, like, a work of art in its own right is going to make reflecting on this journey a bit more positive. And yeah, okay, maybe they never ratify it, but I know what we did, and that piece that we've created is going to impact a lot of people. And I think it's got a really massive opportunity to like change my life, and for people to see just what happened, and whether I have the record or not at that point, for them to know like this was fucking wild. I'm keen for that.
Yeah. No, honestly, from an outsider's perspective, it's like it's an incredible achievement, but I think you'd be surprised how much your run inspires people as well. Like once it hits the screens, it's obviously going to have further impact. But I mean, I go on runs and I just know in the back of my head that you what you've done and the runs you do, and like just the inspiration I get from just thinking about you. And I'm sure that the same applies to all the people who follow you and support you. So, your actions do inspire a lot of people, and I really look up to you and everything you've built. So the run was fucking incredible, and I can't wait to be at the screening and watch it unfold. But man, what an epic thing that no one can ever take away from you.
Cheers, Bella. Appreciate that, mate.
All right, that's our conversation. Is there anything you want to touch on to wrap up our episode? I thought it was a really, really good insight into the run itself, and I get a bit of the psychology and the preparation of it too. But is there anything you want to touch on?
I think like the main thing that I need people, I guess, to take from this, and like it's what I took from this, is like that real, unrelenting positivity for whatever it is that you're doing. Like, you've just got to believe that the positive outcome is coming. And there was plenty of moments within this journey and within my life's journey where I've felt maybe I can't do this, or maybe the odds are stacked against me. But I think that's the main lesson that you should take in whatever challenge that is coming up against you right now, is that if you just keep believing, and if you don't allow that trace of doubt to come into your mind, eventually like you will get the outcome that you're after.
So focusing on continuing to take action, because I know for me, I've got, I'm in that sort of like ebb and flow in my life, and I really want to knuckle down on my vision and stuff like that. So I've been trying to, relate your journey and your story, and find ways to apply the philosophies that you've applied into my own life.
Yeah, I think that's where you're at right now, mate, because I think you're incredibly talented and you've got a lot to give the world. And when you find the way, either the thing or the way to knuckle down on the thing, man, I've got full confidence you're going to be incredibly successful.
No, I appreciate that. And thanks for coming on. I'm sure the listeners will get a lot of value out of that conversation, and hopefully, everyone's looking forward to the screening in April. Thank you. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.